mindfulness. Usually I share mindful living habits and strategies for all the ranch employees to play with or try out and discover how things in your work life and your personal life can truly become less hectic, less stressful, and the bottom line, more joyful. Today, I'm hoping you'll all allow me just a little small detour. And those of you who've been with me before, you'll see that in a moment. Many people have asked me, Marsh, how do you decide on topics? And I actually do spend some reflection time thinking about what would be a good topic. And topics usually come from my life journey and sometimes even yours. Topics are initiated by questions from you or comments that you have about something you may be struggling with. Or perhaps it's happenings at the ranch, in our world, state, communities. The North Dakota weather, I was really hung up on winter and waiting for spring at one time. And of course, holiday seasons and back to school. And sometimes it's just from things that I think might be interesting or helpful. Today, I'm going to be quite vulnerable in my mindfulness sharing as I totally own this topic. First, for me, it takes great courage to really sit with my feelings and allow myself to surrender to all their powerful energies. I've shared with you before, feelings and emotions are those things that if we ignore them, they tend to just pile up. And the best thing is to invite them into tea and get to know what's going on. But all too often, I set my feelings aside, thinking I'll deal with them later. I'm just way too busy to do that mindfully right now. And I know that if I don't deal with them, I end up storing them up here in my mind and in my body. And this is when I feel anxiety and other health issues like not sleeping so well. And then that can rise to other problems that I can have in my body and in pain as I deal with chronic pain. This is also true for most people, and that's why I've had a few sessions on emotions and feelings. So here's where I divert a little bit. Here's my story from last week. Every summer I anxiously anticipate 2 weeks of camping. I mean, these are my 2 great weekend and weekful days that I'm going to spend camping, one in June and one in August. And I start looking forward to these weeks like while the snow's still flying, because in North Dakota and in certain spots, especially Fort Stevenson State Park, you have to reserve a spot like months and months and months in advance. So then I get into June and it's really a hectic school year. And so that's why the June one is like, oh, okay, let's just kind of calm down from, a great year. And then July is the one where I start building up my energy because after all, a new school year's coming, crazy hectic August schedule. So I want to have, a mindfulness piece of this. And last week was that week for me. However, I brought a 10-week puppy whose name happens to be Boris, who not only demands a lot of attention, as you can imagine from puppies, but also he had some intestinal distress, probably from the stress of just being in a new environment. I mean, he was only 10 weeks, and it was his first camping trip. Now, I've had many, 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 many puppies during my life, so let me assure you, though, that this was not good. You see, I have 2 other dogs with me, too, a 10-year-old grumpy Italian greyhound named Guido, and a 1-year-old puppy who still is like the tom girl, a go-go named Bella. Now, I adore my Iggies. That's what we call Italian greyhounds. But this combination was a little bit more than I've, at this point in my life, could handle, especially when we had tornado warnings and bad weather. And, they came around and told me I had to go seek shelter. And I have like these 3 crazies with me. And yep, I'm alone. So I'm trying to figure out how to manage this. And even when I'm there, like, okay, I've got these 3. So due to my companions in camping and the size of my Dreamweaver, oh, I should tell you, I call my camper my Dreamweaver because that's what I love to do when I'm in my camper. Well, let's just say that my Dreamweaver is rather small. And so if you have like intestinal issues and storms and lots of humidity and heat. Well, it just so happened I never did get to any of my camping activities that I adore, like fishing or going out and hike or cooking outdoors and and even relaxing. So I arrive at home after a week of whatever that was called, and I'm hauling things out of the camper into the house. And my fur babies, well, they're jumping and wagging, and it's like, oh, I'm so happy to be home, and I'm up on my couch, and I just love being here. I took one look around the house, like the dining room table, the kitchen, the floor. After bringing all this camping stuff in, the laundry pile, and I enter into a total should party. You should have never gone camping alone. You should never have taken Boris. What were you thinking? Couldn't you have at least found a puppy sitter for him? You should be exhausted. You spent all those hours, long hours during the night potty training for potty training breaks. Why didn't you listen to the people that, told you it was a bad idea from the start? Yeah, you should understand, Marcia, you're getting older and you can't expect to have the same fun camping as when you were younger. You should be ashamed that you share mindfulness with Marcia every week and you were hardly ever in a mindful moment the entire week. Yeah, you should be depressed. Now you have all that stuff to do at work and at home, and you are a total wreckage. The shoulds go, well, they just went on. And for what I'm embarrassed to say was quite a while. In fact, my should party got so crazy that I was sitting on the garage floor. Yes, on the cement in the middle of, kind of a cluttered garage. Another should, of course. I should have cleaned that up instead of going camping. Hello, what were you thinking? When the small tears began to flow that turned into big sobs as the tears are dripping onto the cement of the garage. Before long, I was just crying in despair. And believe me, I'm glad I can laugh about it right now because it wasn't that long ago. But at the moment, I didn't want to invite my feelings in for a cup of tea or lean in closer and see how they felt. I knew how they felt. They felt awful. I was miserable. I felt defeated, deflated, totally not mindful, and totally not wanting to feel that way. So I didn't want to press any closer to those feelings. And I share this with you just to remind you that, and I don't need to remind you, but to say that life is difficult and it often doesn't play out as we planned. I thought I had some good ideas. I knew I had a puppy with me. I'm smart. I've had puppies before, but it just didn't go as planned. Who'd have thunk that we were going to have tornado warnings, for example, and 70% dew points for humidity? And although I've been practicing mindful living now for, almost 5 years, guess what? I'm human. I'm just human. And as much as I work on ridding myself of those old MP3 player tapes that are in my head, as was the case with all these shoulds, because I really had I have a boatload of should MP3s up there. And as much as I'm trying to formulate these new pathways and new habits, stuff happens and we kind of go back to those things that we always have done that have been our survival, fight, flight, freeze techniques. Stuff happens and we're just human and we don't at that time remember, or even as I said, I don't think I even wanted to think about my feelings. Because life is messy, it's uncontrollable, even when we're trying our best, and I am. And I know some of you have shared that you are too, to change and to follow our intentions for a more mindful and joyful life. Yep, I finally got off the garage floor. I put one foot in front of the other. I immediately shut down the party and threw out all those should friends and began small steps to start again. began by reminding me of some of the basics of mindful living, reminding myself that all my mindfulness teachers that I have ever met or have ever really followed because I respected them, that at one time or another they had shared their personal meltdowns, because guess what? They too are human. And I also reminded myself that at times it's okay not to be okay. Thanks for tuning in today. And I hope, and my hope is that when you pause this week, you'll also realize that you too are also human. So be gentle with yourself. Until next time, take care.